There's a scene in Marvel and Netflix's The Defenders where Jessica Jones goes drilling through public records to try to figure out who's been smuggling explosives into New York City. She has a lead, the Twin Oaks Shipping Company. As she looks through the charters of the Twin Oaks Shipping Company, she finds that the assets actually had been transferred from another company, the Sherwin Holdings Company. So she continues to look. Being a private investigator and reluctant part-time superhero, she's trying to determine what this company does. Things like what industry are they part of, what markets do they serve, but most importantly, what the corporate ownership structure looks like. She needs to identify the company's directors or shareholders, pretty much anybody that she can find to question regarding her investigation. As she continues to look through these records, she gets confused.
Hi, I'm confused.
Okay.
I'm looking into this company, but they've been transferring assets from one corporation to the next. Like, they're changing their name, shell company stuff. Yet I have no idea what it is they actually do.
So what do you need from me?
The oldest record dates back to 1820, but as crazy as this sounds, I think I need to go back further than that.
So Jessica is stumped. Meanwhile, Danny Rand of Rand Industries, who also goes by the Immortal Iron Fist, and his partner and Kung Fu sensei Colleen Wing are looking into this mysterious organization known as the Hand.
There was an organization that did business with us last year.
We did lots of business.
Yeah, they call themselves the Hand. We tailed them. We tracked them to Sao Paulo, Berlin, Moscow.
They set up shell companies worldwide.
We think they're doing something here in New York.
We need you to help us find it.
Sao Paulo, Berlin, and Moscow.
Uh-huh.
I'm cross-referencing short-term holdings through those cities. 200 exist in the overlap. 3 of them shut down last year.
What does that mean?
Not much, except that they were shut down on the same day. Before they closed, they all made deposits into one place. Midland Circle Financial.
It must be the Hand.
So at this point it appears that the Hand are primarily using shell companies to aid in their shadow operations. So what are shell companies? I'm glad you asked. Shell companies are meant to confuse. These companies don't have any direct operations, but are used as a tool to carry out business transactions for an anonymous owner. The companies actually only exist on paper. They don't have a physical office or employees. They do, however, have a bank account and usually hold passive investments. These can include assets such as land, buildings, factories, equipment, as well as shares in public and private companies, and even things like leases to ships and aircraft. The real purpose to these things is to keep the owners anonymous. Although it may seem like anonymity is a thing that only people who are doing tax evasion or money laundering could use, there are actually practically a lot of good reasons to have shell companies. In many cases, it's just a lot simpler to create a shell corporation versus going through all the hassle and paperwork of filing in countries such as, say, the United States. Otherwise, legitimate industries, such as private equity or venture capital, use these vehicles to store funds raised for new investments. There are, however, many ways in which people can use these to do things that are legal but morally questionable. Things like hiding money from a spouse, or hiding money from creditors, or multinationals using complicated schemes to avoid paying taxes. Schemes like the double Irish or the Dutch sandwich. These are pretty complicated, and we can get into these in future videos. But now that we kind of understand what shell companies are, let's talk about this Hand organization. Who are they, and how do they use shell corporations?
The Hand is an ancient criminal organization.
Define ancient.
They live forever.
You want to try that again?
They live by a fanatical ideology, and every member is willing to die to protect it.
So they're terrorists.
No, terrorists want the world to know what they're doing. This is something more secret, more evil.
And they're global.
So what do?
Everything.
Including the recruitment of young men in Harlem?
Apparently. Look, they're in New York for a reason, but I don't know why.
What do you mean fanatical ideology?
Sound crazy.
Okay, so what do they want?
Immortality. They want power and influence at every level across the world.
So Danny and Matt Murdock, aka the Daredevil, explain to Luke Cage, the superhero of Harlem, and Jessica, the Hand are a global shadow organization that wants power and influence at every level across the world. In a scene a few minutes later, we learn from Stick, Daredevil's sensei, the founding members of the Hand, and from that we can actually derive a potential org chart. Generally speaking, an organizational chart shows the hierarchy of a company or an organization. Things like who does what in an organization and who reports to who.
I came face to face with a woman at Midland Circle. She said she was the Hand.
Alexandra. And she's led them since the beginning. When they dispersed, they all went back to their mother countries, each finger ruling over its own domain, growing in power and influence.
Madame Gao?
She's one. Then there's Sowande, African warlord, gunrunner, you name it. Then there's Bakuto.
Who's the last one?
Marukami.
As we can see, each member of the Hand heads different divisions or profit centers. While Alexandra is the chief executive officer in charge of the overarching strategy, Gao is in charge of production and sales of illegal drugs such as her Steel Serpent branded heroin. There is also some overlap between divisions. Bakuto, who trains the ninja army, aids Alexandra in her kill orders. Sowande then has a group of his recruits from Harlem clean up after Bakuto's ninjas. Additionally, Marukami sometimes uses the ninjas to help in dealings with his clients in efforts to maintain relationships with gang partners. Gao actually explains the Hand's relationships to Elecktra, who Alexandra resurrected to help the Hand with their goals.
Hand is a global organization. For years, Alexandra fostered relationships with everything from crime lords to corporate partners. These relationships grant us invisibility in our operations, our backroom accords, our political affiliations. This gives us power.
As part of these relationships, the Hand create and use shell companies to anonymously hold their assets. For example, they hold the Offshore laboratory in China for research and development of their Steel Serpent product. In North America, they own the Red Hook Pier and Pier 81 to bring in the drug supply in bulk. They own some warehouses in Brooklyn, New York to package the drugs and send out for delivery. They use bank accounts associated with their shell companies to anonymously hide all of the illegal profits made from the sale of the Steel Serpent brand drugs, as well as other revenue channels such as gun sales, hit jobs for clients, subcontractor work for their corporate partnerships, etc. They can use this account to pay out officials as cash bribes, as well as hold penthouses for their executives or executives that are part of their corporate partnerships. For example, Harold Meacham's in Iron Fist Season 1. You know what's truly interesting is that these things happen in real life every day. In the past couple of years, with the release of the Panama Papers and the Paradise Papers, the have-nots of the world finally have a good picture into how the haves of the world hide their money. These leaks comprised of some 25 million documents from a couple of law firms who specialize in setting up shell companies. It is estimated that $2.6 trillion is held offshore in these shell companies in the form of assets anonymously owned by business tycoons, politicians, and celebrities. Even Hermione used shell companies to move galleons from Gringotts to reduce her tax burden to the Ministry of Magic. These leaks also shed public awareness into how simple it really is to set up shell companies. Let's say billionaire Tony Stark wanted to set up an anonymous trust fund for the future grants to his alma mater at MIT, or maybe hide some of his assets from Pepper Potts before they get married. All he needs to do is contact a registration agency that you can find on Google and send them 3 items: a utility bill with his Malibu address, his passport, and a signed terms and conditions form. In that form, he would pick a name for the company, how about the Rocksoft Corporation, and choose which country he wants it to be registered in, a nice tax haven such as the British Virgin Islands or Nevis. He would then choose different countries to have Rocksoft's bank accounts in, such as Cyprus or Latvia. The registration fees would only be $500 to $3,000 depending on which company he went with to set up everything, and he would have it all ready to go within a week or 2. Once completed, he would receive a certificate of organization, an operating agreement, and a corporate seal. NPR's Planet Money podcast has a set of episodes with further details on how to set up shell companies, and are definitely worth checking out. Hopefully now you have a better understanding of what shell companies are and how the Hand uses them in Defenders. What would you name your shell company? Also, if there are any TV shows, movies, or topics you'd like to see covered in future episodes, please let me know in the comments below. For announcements, check out my Twitter at NextAce Network and my Instagram at NextAce Network. Finally, look out for my Patreon page coming soon.
It's been a long week.